Right. All right, guys. So, welcome to episode one of the Warrior Unfiltered podcast. We're here with myself and co-host Henry. So, essentially, just for episode one, we were both thinking that we're going to keep this one relatively short in duration. We just want to start off with introducing the podcast, what kind of direction we want to take it in. Obviously, we'll discuss about ourselves, who we are for the viewers and listeners who don't know who we are, and then kind of just go from there off the cuff. So I think obviously the ideology behind the name, which first of all, I just want to say a thank you to everybody on my Instagram who voted for Warrior Unfiltered.
I didn't know the name until this just
Oh,
started.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I genuinely
No,
didn't until like 2 minutes
nobody
ago.
knew. It was between Mindset of a Warrior and Warrior Unfiltered. I will have to give a shout out to my partner because she was the one that actually came up with that name. And I just feel like if I don't give her a shout out, I'll probably be in the doghouse. But yeah, I thought that one was the best suit because most people know me for somebody who is completely transparent and unfiltered. I mean, it's not a great trait to brag about because sometimes it can be a little bit controversial, but there are other times in certain contexts and circumstances where it can be beneficial. I think from like a personal growth and development standpoint, and then also just telling people as it is. But yeah, the ideology behind the name of the podcast and the podcast in and of itself is this is something that I personally have been debating to do for like a year now. Do you remember when I dropped that message to you?
It-
It was about a year
yeah,
ago.
it was before. It was before last competitive season, definitely, because I
Yeah,
don't think we'd been to any shows or anything at that point.
yeah. It was something that was in the pipeline. I mean, honestly, it's something I've never actually wanted to do. I've never wanted to do a podcast. I don't know why. I'm not really a massive fan of public speaking. But I'm not going to be one of these people that say like, "Oh, I've got millions of people in my DMs asking me for a podcast." But I did have a few that were kind of like, "Oh, have you got a podcast channel?" Or there was even a couple that said, "I've got the perfect voice for a podcast," which I completely disagree with. But I just thought,
Please expose who asked who said
yeah,
that.
honestly,
That's
no.
fucked.
Um, but yeah, I just thought, obviously, as I'm getting a little bit older, I'm kind of coming away from the competitive side and working more on the business aspects. This is just obviously another platform for myself to get some exposure out there, for my brand, for my athletes, and then obviously a platform for you because obviously you're an upcoming coach at the moment. So it's going to be like a win-win situation. I think in terms of the direction that we want to take this podcast in, me and Henry were talking about this before we actually clicked the record button. I personally want to try and make this as fresh as possible in terms of not having the stereotypical guests on here talking about their, how they came from nothing to where they are now. It's more of a case of trying to get people who are a little bit more relatable, people who are either just starting their career or halfway through. So, for an example, people who have like a 9 to 5 job and also compete and how they juggle that. I don't know if there's anybody else that you can think of or kind of a trajectory that you would say to take the podcast.
I've got a few people I'd like to invite on, but I will
Yeah.
keep that private because they might just not want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not
I've,
going to
I've,
commit them to it, and they just go, "Yeah, no, fuck off, mate. I'm
see,
not doing it."
see, this is where I think you're going to be really, really viable on this podcast because I was just about to chuck out a bunch of names because I'm just transparent. So yeah, with that said, I won't mention any names either. I don't want to chuck them under the bus and put the pressure on them. But yeah, just I think that's kind of the direction we're going to take it. But I think ultimately it comes down to the reaction that we get on the podcast,
Yeah.
what the viewers like and if they're, enjoying the content. And then maybe they can just chuck out some suggestions as well. And then also, I think to make it really relevant to the name of the podcast, if we at some point add on like a controversial segment, where we can debunk some common myths within the context of bodybuilding. Also, things that are non-bodybuilding related. People can just maybe if we put a poll up on Instagram, people can chuck out some suggestions of a topic of discussion, and then they can just get our thoughts on it. And I just want it to be a platform where we can all be open. There's like no judgment. There's no uh, opinions. Well, opinions, yes, but not a negative opinion towards one another. It's just allowing people just to say what's on mind.
Yeah,
I think
I can already tell if the wrong people watch this and we're debunking shit, we're gonna lose friends, man.
well, again, my partner said she reckons that we will be cancelled by the end of episode 1.
I don't think that quick, but it really depends what topics people put in when they're asking us to speak.
Yeah,
I think we're both very similar in our views on bodybuilding stuff, at least, and I
yeah,
think it's realistically, I wouldn't even call it like dogmatic at all. I just think it's actually just understanding how things work.
yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people wouldn't like what we say because we're newer in the industry as well, like you said. Well, me more than you, but I think that's just a common thing that you get when you're starting. People don't like newer people as much. They don't think they know what they're talking about and all of that shit. But yeah, it should be fun. See if anyone gets pissed off.
I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is the thing. I think this is one industry where it's strange, right? That a lot of other industries are very supportive of people just starting out, where I think it's somewhat the opposite in coaching. I
Yeah,
feel like, and this isn't everyone, there's a lot of people at the top, like Tom and such, that will, my coach, who will help people starting out. There's a lot of people above in bodybuilding who are like, who will talk. I mean, I'm not going to name names of people saying to my coaching clients that who are doing preps that they shouldn't trust me to prep them because I've never prepped anyone before. I'm thinking, well, you have to have your first one. You have to. So yeah, I think it's a little bit backwards some ways of people think. I think everyone should support each other a bit more, but
mm,
you do get a lot of stick when you start out as a coaching industry.
yeah.
100%.
That again is another reason why I wanted to add that like controversial segment into it, because it is very controversial. This industry. I don't know why, but it just seems to be only this industry where it's just so opinionated, so judgmental, and just controversial in general. It doesn't make sense. But
It doesn't make sense because the way I see it, right? If you look, especially I'm talking more coaching than bodybuilding here, right? Coaches are very dogmatic in their ways and they will be like, it's my way or nothing. But when you look at the best athletes in the world, all of them have got there in different ways. So it just shows there isn't a right or wrong way. But people will sit there all day and argue on Instagram what is right and what's wrong and what the science says and what the old school says. It's just fucking boring, isn't it? After a while, just watching people argue. I think it's something that shouldn't be there, but it is. And I think it's people playing a game of just making themselves look better at other people's expense.
yeah, yeah, I think ultimately it's like, even if you come out of the realms of bodybuilding, it's just like in general life, racism is always going to be there, sexism, all that's always going to be there. But it's a case of just trying to put things into perspective. Just trying to broaden your horizon and open up to different people's perspectives and their perception, etc. But again, coming back to bodybuilding, it just doesn't seem to be the way. It's either this way or no way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You're either like new school cuffs bands or your old school Dorian Yates. There's never like you're thrown into one camp and
yeah,
that's it. And it's
it's
fucking
it's just
stupid,
black and
man.
white. There's no grey area. I've always said, and this is my opinion, I feel like you've got these two camps. You've got obviously the left camp, which is the old school camp, which is, oh, it's just compound movements, lift heavy, eat a lot of food. And it's like, yeah, okay, essentially that does work. And we know that does work because we've got anecdotal proof from all of these bodybuilders throughout the history of bodybuilding. But then you've got the right side camp who are saying, okay, yeah, that does make sense. But then also, have you looked at the more modern evolution of training? It's like, why don't we
Mm-hmm.
combine the two? Whereas that's where we are pragmatic and they're being dogmatic. That's my opinion. I just think like we're kind of trying to combine the two where they're just saying it's just this way. That's it.
I do think though, on the flip side, just playing like devil's advocate here,
Yeah.
there's this new generation of young chaps on TikTok that are very, very much over on the new sciencey side.
Yeah.
A lot of them haven't got much muscle at all, but they will sit and argue with pros and tell them what they're doing is wrong. And you think like you got to sit somewhere in the middle and go, right, there's the science, and then there is the actual evidence in human beings that have a lot of fucking muscle that there is stuff that works. And like what you've got to realize as well, a lot of the studies are done. Most scientific studies are not done on 300-pound plus human beings. So you can't really take that data and go, right, that should work for us. Because a lot of it's done on people who are pretty much untrained, most of them, or
Yeah.
what we would consider untrained, what someone who goes to the gym 3 times a week. That's a leisurely struggle, isn't it?
Most of the literature is done on average like a 200-pound individual. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's
Even
me, bro.
that's
That's me.
yeah,
That's me.
but you know, I mean, just an average 200
Yeah.
normal looking person, um, as you say, like an untrained person. But yeah, I think when it comes to science, the literature, it's ultimately just a reference point. It's like, okay, with this study that's been conducted, this will give us a reference point. So this is kind of an idea of what we should be expecting, but then it's also person dependent.
Mm.
So you've got to think of that objectively. It's like look out for these kind of like commonalities or traits, but then don't
Yeah.
take that as gospel. It's either right, that's going to work or it isn't going to work. It's a case of right, that's that reference point. This is what you should be looking out for. And you know, some people will just be that outlier and they'll have a completely different response. And a response that you can't even question. Like it's just you don't know
Yeah.
how they're doing it.
Yeah. I just think with this new and old school thing, I think both have good points, but you steer like too far to one side, you lose out on stuff from the other. I think just sitting in the middle, I think using it all. But yeah, I was just sort of playing devil's advocate there because there is a lot of these 17-year-olds now that will literally scream at IFBB pros and tell them they're doing stuff wrong and that they need to use cuffs and you think you don't really know what you're talking about.
No,
And
I think there's the pressure as well with social media where a lot of people are trying to be academically superior. Like, oh, I know all the fancy terms and I've read this literature when essentially all they've done is they've gone onto Google and read one article. It's like you haven't really
yeah,
digged into the literature, or they just read the abstract and then cherry pick the information. And then, as you say, they start screaming at these IMPB pros who are literally walking what's the word I'm looking for? Like walk-in studies.
yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. I think it is interesting. I don't think we'll ever be able to, you know, wash it out completely. It's always going to be there. You're always going to have that left and right camp.
Yeah, and that's just it. You just try not to get involved,
Mm.
because I think the proof's in the pudding. If you look at just pick any show, any professional level show, and ask the top 10 guys who competed there how they got to where they are, and they'll all give you a different answer of what they did,
Yeah,
and it just shows that there's a million ways to do it.
yeah. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You know, there's a
What was
thousand getting shredded.
obviously I think we've gone
Just
off on a
take more
tangent,
care.
but what was we wanted to go over what we're actually doing at the minute.
Yeah, so I think if we started off with an introduction of ourselves, just to
Yeah.
give the viewers a bit of an insight of who we are, because there's obviously going to be quite a few people that don't know who we are. Do you want me to go first or you?
I don't mind. Up to you. You can go first.
I'll go first. So obviously my name's Harry. I've been a competitive open bodybuilder since 2017. That's the first time I stepped on stage at the UKBFF Kent Classic. The last time I graced stage was 2021. And this year, I'm currently in prep. We're 2 weeks in now, technically.
Yeah.
2 weeks into prep. And I don't know whether to say fortunately or unfortunately, it's my last year ever stepping on stage. After this year, I will be hanging up my trunks officially and for indefinitely, just because personal reasons. I don't think we'll go into detail about them now, but it's just, yeah, my personal decision to hang up my trunks this year. I'm now obviously just focusing on the business side of things. I'm the founder of Trained by Warrior Coaching. Last year, for so to speak, it was my rookie season as a competitive coach. I think, to be fair, it's quite a very successful year for myself for my first year.
Yeah.
If we look at my tally, just to brag a little bit, So my first year taking my athletes to stage, we managed to get one overall, one NFM UK pro card, six first places, four second places, and five third places. So yeah, not too bad. And then I think after this year, obviously we're looking at competing like 2 or 3 times. I'll hang up the trunks and then just focus on business. I've got this year 12 athletes competing all together. So I think I'm just now at that point from a business standpoint that each year my roster's just gonna just keep getting filled up. And I just
Yeah,
don't think I can juggle the two. I mean, people can. I've seen it. You know, there's quite a few bodybuilders with like 3 times the amount of clients that I have, and they can juggle the two. But I think most people that have been asking me, what's the reason behind why you're retiring, so to speak, this year? My response has just been kind of bored of it. I've been doing it for 10 years and I've just had enough of the competing side of things. But a lot of people misconstrue that with, oh, so you're going to give up bodybuilding altogether. Like most people that know me on a personal level, bodybuilding itself, training is my biggest passion. Like I love training. That will never go, but just the competing side of things. I want to get to a point when I can just wake up and if I want to eat, I'll eat. If I don't want to eat, I won't eat.
yeah. I think that's gonna. This is what I've always sort of thought is once I stop training. I mean, I haven't even started bodybuilding. I don't consider myself a bodybuilder until I've stepped on stage. So I'm like 9 weeks away from being a bodybuilder. But I just think
You need a
going from
certificate.
yeah, that I've passed. I'm a bodybuilder now.
Yeah,
But I just think leaving once you finish, I think everyone says, oh, they're going to be more relaxed with food. I reckon it's going to be a lot harder to do that than you think. I think that 10 years of routine is going to feel so alien to break. You'll probably end up doing exactly the same as you are now, just without competing. You'll
yeah,
still do exactly the same.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
You'll
I said,
probably enjoy it more with less stress on you as well, with like thinking, I've got to get this big this fast. I've got to do this. It will just go back to how what I think it'll probably go back to how training was when you first start. When you're not thinking about competing, you literally are just doing it because it's something you enjoy.
yeah, I think after this year, I've said I want to push up to 250, just because I've never been 250 before. Obviously, sitting at 5'6", it would be quite impressive to see what I look like at 250. And then just come down to like a healthy size, and then just maintain that for the rest of the for whenever until I've decided I'm done with bodybuilding. That's
Yeah,
pretty much it. I think just the main reason is food for me. It's just I'm not a lover of food at all. I just despise food. I hate eating. I mean, I enjoy food, but I just hate eating every 3 hours. And I've done that for
yeah,
10 years. You know, I just want to get to a point where I can just wake up and if I want Marmite on toast, I can just have Marmite on toast. I don't have to worry about 30 grams of protein and X amount of carbs. That's the main thing for me.
you'll end up with a coach diet. You'll have more effort. You'll just be drinking monsters all day. It'll just just monsters, modafinil, vapes, and just a takeaway in the evening.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Sounds,
I would be happy with that life, man.
sounds a lot
That
healthier.
wouldn't
I
that wouldn't
don't
bother
know.
me at all.
I don't know what's healthier. But yeah, did you want to give an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not a bodybuilder yet, so I just train. In 9 weeks' time, I'll be a body. In 9 weeks, I can't. You know what? I've got with this year. I've got, which I'll go into in a sec. With my clients competing, it's made my own prep and like run into into bodybuilding so much easier because I just don't have time to focus on my own stuff. I
Yeah.
just forget where I'm at or what I've got going on for myself. But I think I'm about 9 weeks out of my first show, so I'm still a junior because I'm 23. So I'm going to do 3 shows myself, and I have so obviously my job being coaching. I've got 5 competing this year, or it
Five.
might be 4 now. I think it might be four
Is
now.
that
So
including me?
yeah. I think it's down to 4. Actually, someone pulled out, but I can't remember if I had 6 before or 5. So I've got huge. Yeah, it's four. So 4 people, including myself,
Mhm.
and multiple photo shoots. I've timed it really well that I'm going to be really, really stressed for 2 months because it's all happening at the same time. So that's going to be perfect.
Lovely.
But yeah, rookie season for me, I ideally I want a podium every single client that I'm working with, which I think is doable. You've just got to pick the right shows, right? And I think that's part of your job as a coach is to pick shows where your client's going to be competitive, but it's not going to be an absolute walkover for them. So you want realistically that, and that's your job instead of letting clients pick shows that are just that they're gonna get beaten in because I think as a coach it's your role to put them somewhere where they are considered competitive. They're not too good or they're not good enough for a show. So if I can get every single client I'm working with podium finishes this year, I'll be happy with that as a first year ticked off.
Yeah.
And then obviously moving into following years, building up my competitive roster. I do a lot of lifestyle stuff as well. Photo shoots are a big thing that I like doing. So I've got 5 guys doing a photo shoot when I'm a week out of my first show. So that's going to be really fun. I've got to peak all of those. But I genuinely do enjoy the coaching side. So it's no stress to me. I think I enjoy coaching more than my own progress. Just
Yeah.
with the genetics that I have, the rate of progress I make is just boring, man. Like, it's so much more fun watching other people progress. And you've got like, you're then bought into their journey. So you're like, if you're working with 40, 50 people, that's all of those journeys that you're playing a role in and helping and going through obviously the tough times, but getting the wins with them and stuff like that. It's a lot more rewarding than just doing your own thing, I
Oh
think.
yeah, 100%. I think I came to that epiphany last year. Obviously, you came to quite a few shows with me, and I was just comparing at the end of the season. I was like, I realized that I had a lot more enjoyment taking all of my athletes through that process than I did myself. Like, don't get me wrong, 2017, 2019, when I competed, I did have fun with that. But then 2021, it was kind of like I needed some redemption. Um, but I just didn't enjoy the process that much. I got on with
Yeah.
it, no issues. But like when I took my athletes through it last year, I was like, I was so ecstatic every single check-in when we were seeing changes, when we actually were there on show day. I was like, I just didn't get the same kind of energy for my own show. So I think that just to me was like, okay, that was my confirmation that this is where I want to go now. You know,
Yeah.
for me, I'm not delusional. I never got into this to chase that pro card. I never wanted to be a pro. It was basically just for my father. My father passed away in 2015, and we had this kind of goal that we was going to step on stage and go like through that process together. And then obviously he never got the chance to witness it. So realistically speaking, I could have just sacked it in the bag in 2017 because I'd done what I needed to do. But then, like I said, I did enjoy it a little bit at the time.
Yeah.
But now I'm at the point where I thrive seeing my athletes competing.
Mate, I had a very similar one the other day. I was speaking to Aiden. So the first guy I've got competing, he's 2 weeks out. We was talking about his prep, and then he asked me, I think it was today actually. He asked me if I'm excited. I was like, yeah. And I think he was asking me about my prep, but I'm so caught up thinking about his. I'm like, yeah, I'm buzzing. Like
Yeah,
I'm buzzing for your prep, not mine. Like
yeah,
I mean, I'm excited for mine, but I don't know. It's very much backseat. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not doing the work that's required, but it's not at the forefront of my mind like
yeah, for sure. I
Aiden,
think
James, you.
it will be different on show day for sure. You know,
Yeah,
but at the moment, obviously, you've got that pressure of dealing with all your other athletes, and obviously, with it being your rookie season as well, like you've put a lot of pressure on yourself this year, which I admire, in my opinion. I like challenging myself. I'm that type of person. So I do admire that about you because obviously you've got your own prep and then also it's your rookie season as a coach. So it's going to be interesting.
yeah.
It
I'm
will,
actually doing this show with one of my clients this year as well, which is going to
that'll
be
be
fun.
cool. That'll be cool.
Me and James, the only reason I would compete with James is because I know he'll beat me. Like I wouldn't compete against a client if I had any chance of beating him, but James would smoke me.
Yeah.
So I would happily. We just want to do it so we can get some cool pictures together on
Yeah.
stage.
That's ultimately the reason why I wanted to step on stage again this year. It's just because I don't feel like I've reached my true level of condition. And I want to reach that like inside out, dick skin peeled level of condition just so I can have those pictures. You know, that's
Yeah,
literally it. There's nothing more to it. But I think overall, that's kind of it really for episode 1. I don't think there's much else to touch on.
Yeah.
I think we'll just
Yeah.
keep
No.
the first episode nice and sweet and simple. And then, like I said, at a later date, we can maybe like start bringing on some guests and delving into actual topics and spend like a whole episode talking about various different things.
Yeah, I think we should ask people what they want us to speak about. Oh, we'll put some polls up on Instagram and just see what people want.
Yeah.
But we've got to see if people watch the first one first
Yeah.
to get to this point.
I mean, they've had to get to this point now of the first
Yeah.
episode for me to then for them to hear me say that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there then. Yeah.
Yeah, wicked.
Anything
And
else you want to
we'll,
mention?
no, I'm happy with that.
I feel like I want to say,
Be,
any sponsors? Do you want to shout out any sponsors?
I don't have any, man. I had one and it went
Monster,
missing,
if you're
man.
listening, if you want to sponsor us.
The one sponsor I had just disappeared off the planet, like the face of the earth. I've not. I had a sponsor for like 9 months, and then he just went. I don't know where the guy went, man. He literally closed the Instagram page and it was gone. I was like, oh, okay. So I've not got one since.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there then. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and like I say, we'll bring out some more episodes in the future. If you did like this one, I don't even know how it works. Like, or
just do something with it.
Yeah, do something. Do something to give us more exposure, and we'll catch you all guys on the next episode. Cheers.